Here at KSMO Radio, your hometown radio station, AM 1340, FM 95.7, and streaming at KSMORadio.com, KSMO Stream Facebook, and KSMO YouTube. We're going to talk a little bit about National Preparedness Month, which is kind of the month of September, and we have Greg Wiles with us. And Greg, it's good to have you in.
Thanks, good to be here.
Well, this is probably something I think everybody has heard about, or at least has been aware of, either from, like you mentioned, 20th anniversary of Katrina. I think
Today.
A lot of people,
Yeah.
really remember what happened back then and the emergencies back then. But we've had fires, we've had floods, we've had earthquakes. Everything that can be determined to be a disaster.
Yeah.
I think it's happened this year in the United States.
Feels
alone.
like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, and we've had tsunamis. I mean, we don't often get tsunamis, but I think Hawaii had a couple of tsunamis actually that affected them a little bit. So we've seen kind of the whole gambit of emergencies, but being prepared for them is, I think, something that we take lackadaisically. Do you not agree?
I do. I think that we all think it happens somewhere else.
And when we say being prepared, this is not just saying, well, I've got an extra case of water in the back just in case, we run out, and a few cans of food. That's not what we're talking about.
No, mostly we're talking about a mindset. Mm-hmm. And what our goal is resiliency. I mean, disasters are going to happen. It's how we get through them and how we recover that's the important part, especially as a community.
Right, and that's what the whole thing is also about, too, when we talk about national preparedness. Not only have your family ready, but your community ready, your neighborhood ready. And if everybody's on the same plan, if disaster does strike, everybody knows where to go. Everybody knows how to communicate with somebody. It may not be immediately because you may not have any phone lines or it may not even be cell phone towers up anymore. But somehow, some way, you're going to be able to communicate with somebody at least within the next day or two so that everybody knows everybody's safe. Very important to have a plan, but also to practice that plan.
Absolutely. And plan was the most important word in there, because if you haven't given it any thought, you won't. We have three choices when we're hit with a strong crisis. Mm-hmm. We're going to fight, flight, or freeze. And actually, freeze is the most common. And if you haven't thought about it ahead of time, if you haven't prepared for it, and if you haven't practiced it, mm-hmm. you're most likely to just freeze up.
Well, and we're here to talk a little bit about this today, but there's going to be a little get-together next week, correct?
Right. The first Thursday of every month, mm-hmm. we have a local preparedness group that gets together and talks about it. And this month, we're talking about natural disasters.
Right. It's probably a good month to do that.
Yeah.
Because I think FEMA is the first one that came out with national, quote-unquote, the term National Preparedness Month. Okay, so we all know FEMA, how effective they are, but it was a good idea.
FEMA has evolved. In fact, Hurricane Katrina was the biggest event in helping FEMA evolve.
Sure.
They're much better today than they used to be.
Yeah, I won't say I think they were overwhelmed at first,
they were.
By disasters and what happens. I don't think they were prepared for what disasters.
That's how ironic is that?
Yeah. You hope to do it. But, I mean, when we talk about being prepared, we're not just talking about physically being prepared, making sure you have insurance on your house, making sure if you live in a floodplain, you better have flood insurance, things of that nature. Financially, you want to be ready, but family and even your faith.
Yeah.
It's all part of being ready, isn't it?
I mean, a week ago, yesterday, my dad suffered a stroke.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And how prepared are you? You find out immediately when something like that happens.
Yeah.
And we all are going to face that with aging parents or grandparents, or doesn't matter what age you are, you're going to go through a crisis like that. The most common crisis people are going to face probably is loss of a job.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you go into work and boom, the company's been bought out or whatever. How prepared are we for those common everyday things of life that are tragedy in your life? As they say, the difference between the recession and the depression is the recession is what happens when your neighbor loses his job, but the depression is what happens when you lose your job.
Yeah, and depression is not only a financial thing, but it's also an emotional thing.
It is.
And it can destroy you from within.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to find a way out, and you don't maybe, and really your mind just starts spinning at that time. You just can't think clearly.
Right, and that's where muscle memory is the term we use for that. Mm-hmm. The things you've practiced ahead of time can kick in. This is why we do fire drills in schools,
sure.
And things like that. Is so that when the crisis hits, we've already practiced it. We already know what to do.
And people who are affected by disasters, and you know this as well as I do, have to rely on their neighbors. They have to rely on their faith to get through sometimes, and you'll hear people pray, Lord, help me get through this. Okay, it's not going to happen in 15 minutes. It's not going to happen in an hour. It may not happen in a month.
No.
But if you just be patient,
right,
utilize the assets that you have developed and worked with and created, you can get through any disaster, can't you?
Yeah. One of the best stories on that subject of being prepared ahead of time is in the Bible, in the Scriptures, in Genesis, where through a dream, God told this whole nation, 7 years from now, there's going to be a serious drought that's going to last 7 years. And to their credit, by the time the 7 years was up, they were ready.
Right. Yeah. Right. And then you think of the great flood with Noah.
Yeah.
Trying to warn people, hey, this is coming.
Right.
And
we're never told what Noah's message was to the people, but it very well may have been, build a boat.
Yeah. Well, you needed it.
Yeah.
And it really, and these are the kind of things that they stand out because obviously we've read the Bible. We hear about those things. And then the natural disasters we have, it wasn't all that long that we had a volcano erupt in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And then look at Maui, got just totally wiped out.
And a brand new fountain in Yellowstone that just opened up.
Yeah.
There's a new
one,
new pool, yeah.
Yeah. And, Old Faithful may not be faithful forever.
It can't help it. Yeah.
It's all based on steam and all that volcanic movement that's underneath the earth right there.
And every earthquake can change that.
Oh, absolutely.
In fact, that big earthquake that hit off the coast of Russia there is in the top 10 earthquakes of all time. And wonderfully enough, nobody died.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
It is amazing.
Yeah, they had those tsunami warnings
Everywhere.
go out, and I think people paid attention to that. Once you have a very strong earthquake like that, something's going to happen. Where did that shifting happen in the ocean? I have no idea, but boy, I tell you what, you don't want to be on the backside of that tsunami coming in at 25 or 35 feet of water, a wall of water coming through. There's not much left after that when it comes through. All right, well, let's talk a little bit. Obviously, we're talking about National Preparedness Month coming up in the month of September. We have so many things anymore. I think we were talking a little bit before we came on the air. Energy crisis. Everybody relies on electronics. Everybody relies on their electric cars now, and everybody relies on their cell phones. In a time of emergency, that can all get shut down in a heartbeat.
It is. It can. And have a backup. What would I do without it? We used to live without it, so we could learn to live without it. But when we become so dependent, what am I going to do if all of a sudden my phone doesn't work?
Mm-hmm. And how many people actually know how to communicate anymore because of their phone? We text.
Right.
In
fact,
email.
We don't remember phone numbers
No,
anymore
we don't.
because we've saved them in the phone.
Right.
But if all of a sudden the phone drops in the drink, and now you don't have that number, how are you going to call?
Yeah, and we don't think about that.
Yeah.
No.
Everybody should go right now and take their wallet and go over to the copy machine, pull every credit card and driver's license out, lay it face down on the copier, and hit print, flip the cards over, put the paper in again upside down, and print the other side, and then put that somewhere. So if their wallet's stolen or lost, they have that information. It's just part of being prepared.
Yeah. And the energy crisis we're also talking about, we are a nation that is over 200 plus years old. We have had infrastructure a lot of it was done back in the 1900s to 1930s. A lot of that is now 100 years old. Infrastructure doesn't last forever.
No. And you've gone through the analog to digital phase
gosh,
here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And spin records. And
yeah.
Then it went to CDs, and now it's computers. And
Yeah.
And how fast did that happen?
Right. And even the frequency of television had to go from analog to digital on their signal.
You're right.
And everybody's set all of a sudden wouldn't work. But
yeah, they tried to do that with radio, and that has really not worked out that well because anybody's analog radio, if they went to digital, wouldn't work.
Right. Yeah.
It's a whole different dog. And,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And a lot of they have the satellite phones now. That's all digital now. I know back when we had the ratio back in 2009, that was still analog at that time. And the interesting thing about that is only one of our cell towers was operating, and it was being overloaded. Obviously, everybody's trying to call, couldn't get out, couldn't get anything. So to get something done, you had to go to the fire department to call for water, to call for this, to call for that. All had to be done by a satellite phone. Mm-hmm. Thank goodness. With the technology was there to help, but I think that satellite phone was like $300 and some odd a call
Right.
at the time.
Right. Yeah. And technology has helped in that regard. You can now buy a Garmin InReach, and you can't call, but you can text on that anywhere in the world. It's like $14 a month.
Right.
But don't take it to certain countries, or you will be the Terrorist of the Week award. But, yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about a personal crisis that comes up in, let's say, a disaster. You know, we all know we're going to all suffer through a personal disaster or any kind of emergency that goes on that affects your entire community. Everybody's affected, but it'll affect some other people a little bit more than others, won't it?
Absolutely. The unprepared is who it's going to affect the most. And so, ironically, you're not just preparing for yourself. You are preparing for the little old lady that lives next door who can't prepare for herself, and for the friends down the block who won't prepare for themselves.
And your family.
And especially your family. I've got family scattered. I hope they show up at my place if the whole thing falls apart.
Right.
But you got to be prepared for that.
Right. And if you have children, you have to convince them that they need to practice this.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times they think it's just go through the motions. Go
Yeah.
through the motions. It's not a big deal. It'll never happen to me.
Yeah. Well, back in 2000, Y2K, if we remember that far back.
Yeah.
Actually, I did a radio show in Springfield for a year called The Preparedness Show. But we knew that right after that, things would just, the intensity would disappear.
Sure.
We knew it would go away.
Because all the warnings about
Yeah,
computers
right.
shutting down and everything
Yeah.
else. Nobody knew it was going to happen.
No, actually, Y2K is probably the best example out there of private industry and government working together to prevent a problem from taking place.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
And it did.
Yeah.
But because it did, nobody considers it real. I mean, just think about it.
I never thought about it that way.
Because we
You're right.
avoided it,
Yeah.
people think it was a big spoof. But it's actually probably one of the best examples of doing something about it ahead of time and avoiding it.
And it had to be somebody who was actually thinking back in the mid-'90s. What happens when the 19 goes off of all the stuff? It goes to 20.
Yeah.
What happens?
Yeah.
And then they're starting to look at their computer systems. Okay, our computer systems don't know how to go 20.
Yeah.
We have to figure it out.
And they did.
And they
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
But it wasn't done, and I keep wanting to rephrase this, nothing happens overnight.
Yeah. So I was in the solar business at the time, selling solar panels, and they were $10 a watt then. Now they're under $1 a watt. But the demand was high for Y2K. Then it dropped just to zero.
Yeah.
But that next summer, the price of gas doubled. Went from 75 cents a gallon to $1.50 a gallon.
I remember that.
And the uptake came back a little. Then 9/11 happened. But it was Hurricane Katrina.
Right.
That was when people realized the government can't help me, at least for a week. I have to be ready on my own. That made the uptake in the solar business viable enough for me to do it full time then for the next 10 years till I switched careers.
People don't have any idea, and when you mention Katrina, I don't think, and if you did not go see it, and I don't care what they do with TV,
Yeah.
because they'll change things around on TV that doesn't, you really cannot understand the mass destruction.
Yeah,
of
1,400
this.
people died.
Right.
Most expensive disaster so far, $125 billion has been spent by the government in recovery, and about equal or more to that amount by private industry. And I still think to this day we should have left it flooded and made it the Venice of North America. Canals, they've worked well for Venice.
They have.
Yeah.
They have. And New Orleans is below sea level, so it doesn't take much to think. If you got water in there, where does it go?
Yeah.
It has to get pumped out.
Yeah.
You can dig a hole there and you've got water. So,
Ironically, now that all those billions they spent on the levees are sinking faster than they predicted that they would.
Yeah.
So they're still facing a
I'll
problem.
have to go back there and redo all that again. And,
Yeah.
as well as I do, there's never a cure for something. You
No.
can only put a Band-Aid on
Yeah.
it to hope it doesn't happen again. But it's not a cheap Band-Aid. It's
No,
a very affordable.
Trying to live on the moon,
Yeah.
it's just always going to be risky.
Yeah, there's never an affordable Band-Aid.
No.
It's always something that just goes skyrocketing out of sight. Well, let's get back to kind of how a disaster though affects everybody personally. I think that might be what we really want to kind of concentrate. What you're going to be is that what you're going to be talking about in your meeting coming up next week?
Yes, we're talking about what the very basics, how to get started.
Okay.
How to maybe you start with a 3-day supply of food and water.
Okay.
Maybe you already have that and you want to go to a 7-day. Whatever step you're at, we'll talk about the very basics. Mostly we'll go through the steps: fire, flood, earthquake. Just what happens if, because we all know we're right in tornado territory here.
Oh, yeah.
And we've all experienced the floods.
Yeah.
Last November, in fact, it was election day. It was
It
first time where we live, I was an island. I could not get out any direction.
Yeah.
I had rivers, covering bridges in all directions.
Right. We had 12 inches of rain here in a matter of just a few hours.
Yeah.
Where does the water go?
It kind of stacks up for a while.
And even here in Salem, where we really don't have, except for some streams coming through, we really don't have any rivers here. I mean, Merrimack starts in Dent County over here, and the Current River starts out west and then comes off Pigeon Creek. So up here on top,
it's all downhill from here.
Yeah, it's all downhill. So we're not really totally affected. However, if you live where one of the streams is, and I happen to, when you get that kind of rain, you'll look out and you will see water out on your street or coming up into your yard, and people don't think that'll ever happen to me.
Right. We live right on the river, and in the time we've lived there, we've had 4 100-year floods and 1 500-year flood.
Yeah.
So that tells me their tables are a little off.
Yeah. Well, and here's another thing that I don't think we think about too much with the rain. And Greg, I've said this for a long time. With more highways and big parking lots we put out there, we're taking away the green grass. We're taking away what absorbs that rain.
Right.
And now we're putting it all into a big runoff. Where's it going to run off to? Well, they'll create a little area for a runoff pool over here. Well, that's fine and dandy until that pool fills up. Where does that water go?
Right.
Well, they come right back through town. I don't think anybody wants that extra 5 or 6 feet of water coming through their yard.
And we know so much about that now compared, and we can do permeable concrete.
Right.
We just don't.
Nobody wants to pay for it.
Right. In Wind Cave in South Dakota, if you take that tour through the cave there, they tell you that when they built the visitor center and put in that parking lot, how it changed what happened down underneath in the cave with water flows and things like that.
Absolutely.
It's very interesting to look at that stuff. How one little thing. I mean, we down there at Waynesville, the Ruby Doo Creek.
Oh gosh, when it flooded.
Oh yeah, but they downstream from there they redid that bridge, but it's that long 1/4 mile road leading to the bridge. They raised it 10 feet. That's essentially a dam. I was talking.
That's why I was starting to laugh. I said their best intention was the worst thing they could do.
Yeah. I worked the disaster down there with the group at their regional center and I talked with a guy who lived along the creek, and he'd flooded back in the 90s, and he built his house now 27 feet higher up the bank when he rebuilt, and he still flooded this time. Can you imagine that? 27 feet of additional flood water. We're seeing some really drastic things.
Well, and it's not going to change. I think we're on the backside of that lesser rain and more absorption into the ground. And now, with all of our quote-unquote improvements, I think we have contributed to a lot of that runoff water accumulating into these creeks that goes into the rivers that immediately it surges them. And what are you going to do? Well, if anybody's ever out in a parking lot, and I'm sure we've all been caught in a parking lot somewhere when it pours down rain. No sense trying to drive, right? You watch the water just rolling over that parking lot. Where's it going?
And it's accumulating.
Quickly.
Yeah. And if you've seen those, like out west of the slot canyons and whatnot, the water's barely flowing along, but it's 100 yards wide. And all of a sudden, it gets all confined to that tight spot, and whoo, it just goes crazy.
And not only does it go crazy, it picks up in speed, it picks up in intensity, and disaster mode.
And
because of
we
the
just
pressure.
saw, most recently in Texas, we saw that
we
flood.
saw that.
Wow, that was bad.
And that happened in an overnight downpour.
Yeah.
it's unfortunate that river had a fork right there, and they both sides got it, and it all came together at one time.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but these things can happen.
Yeah,
It can
if you haven't floated the Current River this summer, you'll be astonished at the number of huge 100-year-old trees by the hundreds just laid down along the river there. It really took a beating this spring.
We got a couple of floods last year. That one in November really just did a number because the trees, obviously with the root system in, after it gets wet and it gets saturated, it loosens up a little bit. But the older the tree is and the higher it is, the more pressure that water puts on that trunk. It's pushing. And eventually, if the tree is compromised in any way, shape, or form, it's going to come down.
Yeah. And that's what that brand new bridge they built west of West Plains out there, that $5 million bridge. And those sycamores started lining up and hitting the bridge, and then were stacked up there.
Oh, no.
It became a dam to where it just took out the whole bridge.
Well, and that's one of the things. I know they just put a new bridge here, 19 South, Gladden Creek. Gladden Creek doesn't flood that often, but when it does, it goes from barely a trickle to about 12 feet high in no time. And so when they redid that, I think one of the things that a lot of people told them about was, first off, they're going to do it, and it's going to be at the wrong angle. So I don't care who you are, MoDOT or somebody else, don't just take one plan. And then the people griped and complained because they weren't going to move it far enough. Think about things. First off, think about water flow.
Yeah.
You would think that they do that. Anytime that I know our county commission has to do that, they have to contact the Department of Conservation. They check water flow. You can't interrupt the water flow. Okay, great. That's standard procedure, but that's just regular water flow.
Right.
That's not flood flow. And I think sometimes they need to contact SEMA and say, okay, what do we need for flood flow?
Yeah.
How high do we need to put this? How far apart do we need to put, our supports? Because a lot of times they put these concrete culverts underneath that are pre-poured. They're 12 by 12. That sounds big enough. I'll take all the water we need till you get a 20-foot a tree come across and it hits it sideways. All of a sudden, now you've got 6 by 6, but you and then everything starts piling up.
And if anybody who's ever mined for gold knows if you double the water flow, you move 80 times the amount of solids.
Yeah.
And so that double, you really start moving the debris.
Yeah. So disasters can happen.
Are going to happen.
And they are going to happen. Yeah. Well, first off, recovering from a disaster, it takes everybody, but you have to start from within, don't you? You really do.
Yeah, to be ready.
You have to come to grips with this has happened. Now, I have my plan in place, correct?
Yeah, and don't be surprised if that plan didn't work out the way you really hoped it would. So you got to have,
do they
the
ever?
alternative. No, they don't.
No.
But you've thought about it.
Yeah.
That's the key term. That you've already practiced in your mind and hopefully maybe even position some things and whatnot so that and it won't matter if it was the flood or the fire or the tornado, your preparations for one will help you if those other things come your way as well.
Right. So when you guys have your meetings, do you have a plan that we're going to talk about a personal crisis, financial crisis? Do you separate that out in each meeting, or do you just kind of touch on everything in each meeting to try and get people on top of it?
We'll choose what the topic is for the next month. So I think October we're doing fire.
Okay.
November we're doing preparation for winter storms. December Greg's actually going to talk about beekeeping.
But he's not here.
Yeah, he's not here. He's supposed to be here, but
he was supposed to be here.
So I'm sure he's listening. We can rib him a little bit. But
so if people aren't aware, there are specifics to each one of these things that you can do now to be ready as you possibly can be when that does happen.
And half the fun of those meetings is getting to know one another, saying, hey, I got this, and you got that, and learning to work together. And, of course, there's always food involved. Whatever you bring, we'll snack on afterwards.
Nothing like a good meal. That's always a good thing.
So we meet at the Seventh Adventist Church. It's about a mile north of the square on 19 on the right, just before the cemetery. 6 o'clock, the first Thursday of every month.
Every month. Okay, well, very good. And it sounds very interesting. So walk me through a meeting, if you would, so our listeners can get an idea. So we all get together, and we do a little fellowship to start the night out, and then we concentrate on one of these items. Let's just say winter preparation. Obviously, we all know we don't get snow anymore; we get ice.
Yeah,
and it's nasty.
Right,
and it can tear down your electric lines.
Right.
It can it can tear your roof off. I mean, ice is heavy, and it can do a lot of damage to a lot of things. When you sit down, do you take information that has been presented to you through FEMA? Do you take other information that comes from stories? Do you take other things that come from maybe other states that have experienced different things, that have some good ideas as well? Do you just collaborate and put all that together?
Absolutely, and especially your order of priority. Okay. Most people think food, water, shelter. That's actually the reverse order. In the middle of the winter, shelter will be first.
Sure.
And you can live a couple days without water even. You can live a week. Well, most of us could live maybe 2 weeks without food. But so shelter is first. And so what happens if the heat goes out? Right. Do I have a backup source for my heat or the electricity? Let's say we have electric heat. Do I have a wood burner? Do I have a propane? Whatever. Do I have a backup source for my heat? That would be the first thing.
Right.
And then
a safe backup source.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we have people put generators out there and put
them
inside.
Put the generator in the garage. Yeah.
And it's carbon monoxide. That's not a safe backup.
No, it's not. So knowing what to do and how to do it, and again, we're back to practice it ahead of time.
So you go over the entire gambit of what you can do, because there's always something new being added. But you pretty well put into focus what the people need to be prepared for at that being, like an ice storm, snowstorm,
right?
And maybe even in some cases being isolated, because we all know in Dent County and other rural areas, some of those roads don't get plowed or can't get plowed because they're not high traffic areas. You may be stranded in your house for 5 to 7 days.
Yeah. When I was doing solar installations, ice storm, I'd just done a system for a fella in Salem, Arkansas. And he called me every day. He said, I got power. My neighbors are all coming down here to shower, and whatnot. He was 27 days before he got the power back on. That's the longest of any of the systems we ever did. That's the longest he was without grid power.
Yeah.
I mean, we got a lot of off-grid customers who live that way, but yeah.
Yeah, I believe during the derecho, when it hit the national forest, there were some people who have private property inside the national forest, and they were out almost 2 months because Intercounty couldn't get poles up.
It didn't have poles. He ran out.
Well, the poles were there, but they were twisted and broken, and then they had to clear out the trees underneath just to put them all in there. And if anybody ever saw what happened at the derecho, some of those trees were whipped around and were under tension by getting trapped by another tree. And if you cut the wrong tree, I think it's going to swing back, and it could kill you in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So a lot of different things there. All right, so we're talking about winter prep. We've got our idea. There's another thing that people may not have ever considered: solar power. It opens up another eye, doesn't it?
It's one option. Yeah. Generator's probably a lot more affordable option for short term. But yeah.
But somebody, they have these options, though.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's still another
Plan A, Plan B, Plan C. There's 26 letters in that alphabet.
And you have a plan for each one?
Well, I don't know.
But you have more than one.
But you do need a backup for your backup.
So, we get through the winter, and then we have, obviously, spring coming up. Spring has its own issues with tornadoes, and we all know that, thunderstorms. And it doesn't even have to be a labeled thunderstorm. It can just be high winds. Straight line winds can do damage, too.
Yeah. And for where we live on the river, there's been many times when all of a sudden the river comes up, and it never rained at our place.
Right.
But upstream,
Well, it sounds like you have got a lot of ideas that can help people prepare. Then it's up to them, isn't it?
It is, and up to them to work together.
Yeah.
It's not the idea that you would just hunker in the bunker and do this all alone is a myth and ridiculous. It really is about building a resilient community. Right. I mean, not that I'd love to see a disaster, but I'd love to see when a disaster hits, a community be able to say, we got this. Just, we'll just help each other and we'll be fine.
Yeah, it's not like preparing for the end of the world. It's preparing for an
What's
event,
next?
event that could happen that can I'm going to be kind about this, temporarily affect your life. I think if you go through a disaster, it's not a temporary thing. You're going to remember it. But at the moment it happens, there will be recovery. Mm-hmm. How long does that recovery take? I don't think anybody can really say.
Right.
But like I think you're trying to get these people. I used to talk for a living. People prepared for any circumstance, whether it be short term, medium term, long term. If you're not prepared at all, you're really in trouble. If you're prepared for 2 to 3, you're in pretty good shape. But you really need to look at all of it, don't you?
And that's the deliberation. So what happened? It's called the survival arc, and the curve. And this happens to everybody in every situation. The first thing is denial. I can't believe this is happening, sort of thing. Then there's that deliberation. Well, what could we do? And then there's the decisive action. Those 3 Ds happen there. Now, the more you've planned, the more you've thought about, and the more prepared you are, the faster you'll get through that survival arc on to action. Yeah. And the quicker you can get to the action, the better your chances of coming through it with less trauma.
I can give you a true example. When we had a Mother's Day backup, we had a big storm come through, laid about 7 inches of rain down. Well, one of the bridges had gotten clogged up and it backed up. And about, I know, even in my own house, we had about 6 inches of water get into our garage, etc. But people don't realize when they look out there and they start to panic. Well, what am I going to do? Well, you can't do anything until water goes down. So you don't even know what damages are done, if any. It may not be any. You may just got a little bit of dirt and mud to move out, and maybe everything else good. But if there is damages, you can't just sit there while the water is splashing up on your feet and think, what am I going to do now? Well, first off, be patient. You have to wait for the water to go down.
That's right.
Then you start assessing the damages and see what you have, what may have gotten destroyed, what may not have gotten destroyed, what may be damaged but can be repaired. And then you start to put a plan of action together on how you recover. Yeah. Is that something what we're going to be talking? I mean, what you could be talking about?
Yes. Absolutely.
Just these type of things, like, hey, don't panic.
Right. Because it is flash floods are the number one killer of the natural disasters in America. More than fires or lightning strikes or anything else.
Now if the water's coming up, that's a whole different story. You need to make sure you have a plan of action in place.
Yeah.
Because you can't do anything when the water keeps rising except get out of there.
That's right. Yeah. There were, horrible as it seems, there were people found drowned in their attic in New Orleans. Yeah.
Well, I remember seeing a lot of the pictures when they were flying over with the helicopter, people on their roof, and the water was right up to the crest.
Because those people had a way to get out onto the roof.
Yeah.
But there were people inside the attic who didn't take an axe with them and couldn't get out.
Well, they weren't ready.
No.
They didn't pay. This is why you're having these courses, is to be ready.
To think about it ahead of time. Plan now. What if?
What would happen? I know one of the things, a lot more people I think are prepared for fire, because I think that was one thing that really in school, I remember when I was a youngster, they really used to push the fire. Make sure you have a way out.
Right.
Make sure you know how to break the windows in your bedroom to get out if you have no other way. And use a mattress, pull up something, get a desk or chair, push it through the window, clear the window out, get out of there. Yeah. We all know, though, that if you open that window up, you're going to let oxygen in, and fire will quickly start to spread in there if it's on the verge.
Yeah.
So you don't have a lot of time once you do that. You have to make that decision and go. But they at least got you prepared for that. And if you go touch that door, and you know as well as I do in a fire, you don't open a door, you touch that door, and if it's hot, you don't open that sucker, because you're going to have one roaring blaze come after you.
Right, and many people in house fires especially, it's the smoke that got them. Mm-hmm. Fire never was there. The alarm went off or something, and they got out of bed and stood up into the smoke.
The worst thing you can do.
Yeah, but if they hadn't planned it, they hadn't practiced it, they didn't know to roll out of bed onto the floor and go from there. But if they first talked about it, then went home and evaluated what would I do if, and then literally practice it.
And that's I'm so glad you bring stuff up like that, because people, I don't think they pay attention to that. Smoke rises, carbon dioxide sinks. So if you have carbon dioxide leaks, a gas leak, propane leak, That's going to the floor.
And
you
you-
don't want to crawl out.
Right. A carbon monoxide detector is just as important as a smoke
It is.
detector.
But don't put it on your roof.
Don't exactly. The one goes on the floor, behind the fridge or whatever, and the one goes up high.
Yeah, but unfortunately, you see some of these that are duals. And
Yeah.
they tell
And-
you
yeah.
they can work. I said, it can't work.
Yeah.
They're just selling you a bag of goods there because if that carbon monoxide gets up to that one up in your little area above your bathroom or bedroom, you're already in trouble.
Yeah. And fire extinguishers. Most of us have a fire extinguisher, but how many of us have used one?
You're right.
So next time your fire extinguisher's expired, don't throw it away.
Practice.
Take it to your next camp out and put the fire out with it. Then light it again and let the next guy put the fire out and use it. Learn how to how to do the pattern and how to use a fire extinguisher.
Yeah, and it doesn't last very long. It just takes the air out of it.
Yeah.
If you have an ABC fire extinguisher, which is the recommended one, by the way, it is very important to learn how to use it. And I'm sure as part of the training that you're kind of getting people on top of things. If it's electrical fire, don't use water.
Yeah.
But it's easier said than done. Somebody sees a little fire next to an electrical thing, the first thing they do is grab maybe a pot of water and throw it on it.
Yeah.
You're
We have a friend who threw a pot of water on her grease fire on the stove, and now all of a sudden she had the whole kitchen on fire.
Yeah. So, I mean, just some common sense things, but like you're saying,
And the common sense isn't very common.
no, panic sets in, and the first thing they do is grab whatever they can. That same lady could have taken a canister of flour, thrown it on that fire, and she'd be done.
Yeah. Or just put the lid back on
Right,
the
if
pan.
it's in a pan, but
Yeah.
if it had escaped the pan, just take flour and douse that sucker. It'll go out,
Right.
kill the air.
You kill exactly.
Yeah. I think this has been a great conversation. Again, this is next Thursday.
First Thursday of
Right,
every
but
month.
Your next meeting is
Next Thursday, September 4.
Okay.
And 6 p.m. And bring snacks. We'll eat together as well
right.
and fellowship.
At the Seventh-day Adventist Church?
Yeah, they
Okay.
host us out there, and so we're grateful for that.
Very good, very good. I think people could learn a lot by attending. If you've never gone through a disaster, and I'm talking personally to our listeners, or you've not even prepared, I guarantee you there's some people out there that never thought it's going to happen to me. I don't need to worry about that. Wrong.
Yeah.
Wrong. You always want to be ready just in case.
Absolutely.
This has been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been fun.
I'm glad you came back in. I'd like to do a follow-up on this maybe after the first of the year, and maybe come back in and kind of talk maybe a little bit about winter preparedness.
Yeah.
And keep our listeners up to date.
That'd be great.
On obviously cold, that's a terrible killer, but cold, how it affects young people,
Right.
super young people, or older people.
Right, exactly.
It's a little bit different when you're in your 20s and 30s,
Yep.
but
Your thermostat changes as you get older. And ironically, heat kills more people than freezing in America.
It does, but unfortunately, frostbite doesn't kill you, but it can really maim you for a long time.
Long time, yeah.
And you want to make sure people understand frostbite doesn't take long to get frostbite, especially with a wind chill. And I know people, there's no such thing as wind chill. Trust me, I was in Sweden at a hockey tournament, and the wind chill was minus 63.
Yeah.
You talk about getting off the bus and having your mustache freeze,
Right.
and it did it a second and a
it'll do
half.
it. It will do it.
And they said, yeah. I said, so how cold does it get up here? They said, we've gotten as low as minus 85.
Whew.
And I thought,
That is brutal.
minus 8. How do you survive? He said, we don't go outside.
No.
You don't go outside. And this is in Sweden, right at Christmas time, when they only have 3.5 hours of sunshine a day.
Yeah. And at 40 below, propane won't flow. It stays liquid in a pan right in front of you.
Right,
Yeah.
and we were going up there. The diesel bus driver had to go underneath there and unfreeze the line with a blowtorch. And I'm thinking, you see him going underneath there and lighting this torch, and the first thing in your mind is, we're going to blow up.
Fire and fuel, yeah.
But it just was nothing but gel,
Right,
and it wasn't coming through. And he got I guess they have a little warning light on his bus that your fuel light's
You're getting
freezing.
close, yeah.
So he went underneath there, got that done, and we got to our destination. But I want, if you're not prepared for minus 65 degrees, and who is, you need to listen to the people who live it.
Who've been there, done that. Yeah.
Don't just sit there and say, well, I can get through anything. I guarantee you that walk from the bus to the little gift shop felt like 500 feet. It was probably 20. that wind hitting you in the face, and you're just feeling your face just start to almost break away. It was brutal. So cold can be very nasty.
Yeah.
And, of course, ice can be nasty. We all know snow can kind of buffer you. There's some things you can do with snow to actually build like a little igloo and keep you a little bit warm away from the wind.
Isolated.
Yeah, exactly. Use it as an isolator. So I would love to have you come back. Maybe in January we'll talk a little bit about, or in even December, talk a little bit about obviously the seasonal aspect of what we have.
Yeah.
I think it's been a very informative get together today. I really do appreciate you coming in.
You're welcome.
Spending some time with us here on KSMO. We do really enjoy trying to involve our listeners into what's going on to be prepared. Always be looking out not only for yourself but your family. And this is a community, really strong community that does work together to get things done. And I think this is absolutely perfect that you're offering this emergency preparedness. And again, that'll be next Thursday night and every Thursday night after that, actually.
The first Thursday of the month.
First Thursday of every month.
Yeah, we have a good time. Just come for the fun.
Educational fun.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
But it's a good time. 6 o'clock at the Seventh-day Adventist Church, Highway 19 North. And everybody's welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for coming in. We're really spending some time with Craig. I wish Greg could have been here, but, I can't make that man do anything. He's a great guy. I really appreciate him. Thank you, Mr. Craig.
You're welcome.
We appreciate that coming in and talking to us today on KSMO. We invite you to stick around for AP News coming up. Follow that up with statewide news with Missouri Net and civic happenings. KSMO 1340 AM, 95.7 FM.
Your weekend entertainer.